How to make podcast audio sound better. If audio is so critical, and even in video they'll tell you that audio is probably the determining factor if anybody sticks around and listens. If audio is so important to video, imagine how important it is to a podcast. It's 100% important to a podcast. If something doesn't sound right, people aren't sticking around. So in this video, I want to show you a few things that you can do to sweeten your audio, make it sound rich and crisp, and get people to listen all the way through your episodes. And by the end of this video, we're going to go over some basic editing techniques, some really simple special effects you can use, and some fun things that you can maybe add with, say, music and sound effects, and maybe a few audio tricks to help with your listeners' experience. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Nick Natarella with AdWise Creative. Talking about making your audio sound better, this is very crucial. One of the things that will help you go the furthest with your great audio is, first of all, be sure to record better audio. The better signal you have coming in, and there are many influences on that, the better signal you have coming in, the less you're going to have to mess with to maybe make some adjustments to make it sound better. But also, there's a bunch of stuff that can end up in your audio just to make it sound bad, and now you've got to remove it. That's a tricky thing to do, but it's going to be an essential step. First and foremost, when it comes to starting whatever it is you're recording, whether it be video or audio, make sure your levels are at the right point. Typically, I like to start at about -10. Make sure your levels are at about -10. That gives you plenty of room up and plenty of room down to make any type of adjustments or cleanups or apply any effects. You've still got some headroom to play with. Ultimately, you probably are going to turn it up just a little bit. But if you start right at that -10 level, that gives you plenty of room up and down. That way you can still speak softly and be heard, or you can get grand and overblown and still not be distorted because you're too loud. If you start way up here and then you get louder, your audio starts to crackle and it freaks out, and it's just not a pretty scene. So start a little bit below the optimum level, and that's going to give you some headroom and some footroom to play around and make adjustments. The other thing to mess with, if you've got a designated recording area, this is really going to help you. In the voiceover world, we say that any type of recording, any type of voiceover recording is 10% microphone, 90% room treatment. And there's a lot to be said for treating the room correctly. Now, if you can afford acoustic foam and get a design and stuff like that done for you professionally, fantastic. In fact, I'll tell you how to get a design done for you for free. Go to auralex.com, AURALEX, auralex.com, and use their room design service. You take maybe some pictures of the four walls of the room, give them some measurements to go with those pictures, and they'll get back to you in like a day or two with a complete and total package design for your recording space. Tell them what you're going to use it for. Is this going to be for post-production, or is this going to be for voiceover? Whatever it's going to be used for, recording studio, even a home theater system. They will tell you what type of room treatment, what type of wall treatment, floor, ceiling, walls, what kind of bass traps you'll need, all that stuff in one package to help you wrap your head around what you need to do in that space to make it sound best. And the cool thing is that design service is free. They're hoping that you will obviously order your product from them. I've used the service, and now I've got my home production studio. I personally think it sounds great. I use it for audio and video production. Now, let's head over to the studio and we'll talk about some basic editing. So here's some basic editing tricks and tips for you. When it comes to recording, I use Adobe Audition, and you'll see here these markers. These markers, I will press the marker key whenever I've made a mistake, and that way they show up in the audio file and know exactly where to go to start editing. Now, the nature of this beast is what you have to do when you start making, if you use the marker method, start from the back of the file and work your way up to the front, or else the markers are not going to align. Do that once and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's start here. Here's the first mistake. If you'd like more information about, if you're like, you can check it out here. All right. So if you're like, If you'd like more information about the proposal system referred to in this podcast episode, you can check it out in the link below. All right, so let's just get rid of that whole thing. This is the flub. This is what I'm going to end up keeping. So let's zoom in here. This is a breath. And what I'm going to do is, you can see, like right between the breath and the speaking is this little tiny dip right in there. So I'm going to start there, and I'm going to go to here. I'm going to find that breath and go right in between there. And we're going to highlight this, bring it over to here, and then simply delete it. And now we have exactly the audio that we want. Next week, we'll dig deeper into gathering information. If you'd like more information, there you go. All the flubs are gone. And you do that throughout the entire file, and you'll be squared away. Now let's get into some of the things that you can do to modify the sound. Let's flip over to the multi-track. And this is the edited file, completely and totally done. What I've done here is, this is another template right here. Here's the intro, here's the outro, and then here's the episode we just dropped into the middle. First thing you can do is EQ. Now, what is EQ? EQ will set up various frequencies and make them louder or softer. Sometimes it'll sound really muddy, sometimes it'll sound really tinny. That's when you want to use EQ. Now, I've turned on my parametric EQ. So here we are with I personally like the parametric EQ. There are several EQs that you can add. I choose the parametric EQ, and that's what I'll put in here. So this is what we get as a default. Right off the bat, it comes up with this. Here's the low frequencies, here's the high frequencies. Here's the bass, right about in here is your vocal frequencies, and then here's the really high-pitched stuff. Start with your presets. Use your presets in your templates to make work very quickly. Now, there are a couple things right off the bat that you can use for vocals. Not a guitar, not a snare drum. That's not your voice. Start with something like loudness maximizer, rap vocals, vocal enhancer, any one of those. Just start to play with those. Loudness maximizer. You have a little bit of a bass boost, have a little bit of a high-end boost, and now what does that sound like? It works best for you. The important thing in this step is to gather, I can really hear the high end on that one, can't you? Any and all information needed to prepare an accurate So that's a very common setting, quite frankly. A loudness maximizer helps cut through any background music. Well, we don't have any background music. So let's try the rap vocals. They have a little bit of a bass roll-off, a little bit of a high-end boost. They've got a couple things going on in the middle, lower about 400 hertz, boost the middle of the vocal range right in here. And we're going to see what that sounds like. Proposal. It can be handwritten on a printed out bid sheet template, or it can be still a little bit of a high end. You have a little bit of a bass roll off. Now let's try that last one, the vocal enhancer. This is also a very common setting. A little bit more of a bass roll off. You see all this space now has been taken out. This is a little bit more of a dip. This is about the same boost, but notice your high end starts a lot sooner. Okay, let's listen to that one. One, gathering information. Gathering the right information. Now, there seems to be a little bit of bass that's too much bass is gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to back it off a little bit until my voice sounds more natural, but yet I still have a lot of this gone. You ready? Information correctly and effectively is crucial to preparing an accurate and thorough proposal. Once you've been contacted by it, there we go. That sounds better. Now, here, what I can do is, and I don't like that much high end, so I'm going to bring that down a little bit. A potential customer, start by scheduling a meeting to discuss their project and find out what they hope to accomplish. At this initial meeting, gather, there we go, still a little bit of a boost, but not so tinny. I like that, and what I'm going to do is save that, and I'm going to call this Nick's Vocal Enhancer. And I can come back to this whenever I want and use it, and again, I might have to tweak it a little bit, but 99% of it is there and ready to go. Now, the other thing to do is compression. That you will find under your dynamics. Amplitude and compression come under dynamics right there. And here's the compressor. Again, start with what's already there. Hard, medium, soft. Any one of those. Let's start with the soft compression. Here's your compression. You don't even need to look at this one or this one. You're going to be mainly working here. There are 3 elements here. 4, actually. There are 4 elements here. You're only dealing with this, so don't let these others distract you. So let's hit play. Correctly and effectively is crucial to preparing an accurate and thorough proposal. It's on. Once you've been contacted by a... Not a lot going on. You see how this is barely even moving? So let's go to medium compression and see what we get.
potential customer, start by scheduling a meeting to discuss their project and find out what they...
And now notice this is all the way down here as well. Your volume has been cut. Well, that's what this makeup volume is for. If we like the way this sounds, we can boost it and get it back up into this range with that dial right there. Now let's try the hard compression.
We hope to accomplish. At this
Notice they've really cranked it up already, and this is really kicking in big time. That's a little too much for me. So I'm going to go back to medium, and I'm probably going to raise this to get it back up, get our volume back up into here.
Initial meeting, gather measurements and dimensions, existing and new. Building materials, existing and new. Pictures of pertinent areas and existing.
You want to be at least a -10. Get it back up to about -10, between -10 and -5. That still gives you some headroom to play with and maneuver, and that still sounds good. So I can do the same thing here. I can call this Nix medium compression, and I will always have it. I'll always have it here ready to go. And that's about all you really need to do here. And again, there's a big debate. Do you do the compression before the EQ or the EQ before the compression? Again, play with it. Find the two that work for you, and you can simply swap them around. Now I've got the EQ before compression.
Instruction. Customers' design ideas.
Notice how much louder it is. Now I'm going to move it back to the way it was.
And finishes. The information gathered at this meeting.
So whichever one ends up working for you and the way you want to do it, that would be the way to set it. Again, save all of this so it's all set and ready to go into your podcast template, and you have this just drop, make a few adjustments, and you can mix it down and be done. It'll save you a lot of time. Now, I don't want to do a deep dive into any of this. I'm not teaching you how to, say, adjust those presets or anything like that. But if you want to deep dive into EQ, or if you want to deep dive into compression, just let me know. If there's some other feature or something like that that you want to see, you're having issues with, some adjustments or whatever, drop a comment down below me. Maybe I can do a video on that one too for you. So let's keep going. I've got a couple other things that I can show you real quick. First of all, adding music to a situation. This is a podcast that I work on a daily basis, not a daily basis, on a weekly basis. This is the intro. Here's the host. Here's the guest. And then it goes back to the host, and it goes along throughout that. Now I've separated all this so you could just see it, and we're going to focus on this part right here, where we make that little change. Listen to this. Here is Janet Boynes.
I have a special guest. His name is Brock Williams. Brock, welcome to Healing and Made Free.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. So great to be here today.
Now we're going to bounce around and have a little fun with this. This is not how I edited it, but we're going to have some fun. First of all, one of the things you can do is obviously add music or sound effects. So I picked a little piece of music, and let's say we end up having this music throughout the entire thing. Let's just say that this goes the entire way. We're not going to get into that today, but I'll show you basically what you want to do is just take this, and you can bring, now listen, this is going to be way too loud.
I have a special guest. His name is Brock Williams. Brock, welcome to Healing and Made Free.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. So great to be here today.
You know, Brock, we met at a conference, and
There you go. There's a nice little soft volume right there. Just drop it into place and then adjust the volume. If you're going to put it under the body of the podcast, you really want it almost non-existent. It has to be, you don't want it to disrupt anything, but yet still have it there so you can hear it. So this would be a really nice volume.
Brock, welcome to Healing and Made Free.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. So great to be here today.
So that's one thing you can add. I'm going to mute that because the other thing that we can have a little bit of fun with is, here's Janet's intro.
I have a special guest. His name is Brock Williams.
Brock Williams. There's our little marker right there. Let's use that point. We're going to have fun with Brock. We're going to add some studio crowd that absolutely is thrilled that he's here. Now, again, I'm going to turn this down, but you can add sound effects throughout your podcast. I would say use them sparingly and only where appropriate. Frankly, this is inappropriate for this particular podcast, but we're just having fun here, right? Here we go.
A special guest. His name is Brock Williams. Brock, welcome to Healing and Made Free.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. So great to be here today.
You know, Brock,
And then you're going to want to fade it out before Janet starts talking again.
So great to be here today.
Brock, we met at a conference.
And that's how you add a sound effect. Just drop it into place. Make sure your beginning and end are where you want it. Fade it out at the end, however you want to do it, and have a little fun with it. You can have fun with it, especially if it's a tongue-in-cheek kind of podcast. It would go very well. One other thing that you can do, especially when it comes to having a bunch of people in the podcast, and this is not too bad right here. Let's say this is a third person. Let's say it's a host, co-host, and the guest. Well, I'm going to take this. I'm going to put this here just for the heck of it. You're going to see what I'm going to do here. We definitely want to hear our guest. Our guest is probably the most important person in the interview, right? We want everybody to hear it. Now, to add a little dimension to the room, let's put Janet a little bit to the left. And let's put our co-host the same distance to the right. And now what we've got is Janet over. Now we're playing with our stereo, and we can hear Brock in the middle.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. So great to be here today.
Brock, we met at a conference, and
It's just a little bit in the left. We could probably go a little bit further to make it much more pronounced. Let's go to, let's say 35. I want this to be obvious.
I am always in the business
Now you're starting to feel it, right? Can you hear it in the other?
of talking about God.
And then I'm going to take him and I'm going to put him all the way to 35 to the right. This is our quote unquote co-host.
And how God uses us
Whoops.
in the future from things that happen in our past.
Yes, ma'am.
There, yeah, I already had that line, that track turned down. So that's why it jumped so much. That was not the volume effect. That was the panning effect. So let's get back into here. Let's hear it again.
Talking about God's
This we're going to bring back up to 0. All right, now let's say this is our co-host. We're going to put the co-host on the right as far as we move Janet to the left. We've got our guest in the middle, Janet on the left, and now our co-host on the right.
talking about God's redemption and how God uses us in the future from
Do you hear the shift? Can you hear it go from left to right? So that way you have a little dimension to it. And especially if you've got somebody listening, they become part of the conversation. You've now all of a sudden given this audio a 3D feel. You've got the host on the left, the guest in the middle, co-host on the right, or if it's just these two, if it's just host and guest, you could do right and left with them, so it goes back and forth. You don't want it to be so much so, like 100% to the. That's just going to be too painful. You want to give it just a little bit of a nudge to one side or the other, because you don't want it to fly from. This is like all the way to the left and nothing in the right, and then all the way to the right and nothing in the left. You don't want to be bouncing that far, but a little separation kind of gives a little distance, like you're sitting at a table and you've got this person over here and this person over here, and it really gives a different feel for the person listening. Again, just a very subtle touch. Don't take it too far, but panning can be a lot of fun, especially in a multi-voice situation.
So now that you've got all this audio content ready to go, how are you going to promote it? With your audio content. And I'll show you how to do that. I've got a free gift for you. Go down to the description and click on the link for SND. That's Slice and Dice. How you can create all of this promotional material from the content you've already generated. This is the stuff that you'll send out on social media to tease people to come back and listen to the entire video, or come back and watch the entire video, or come back and listen to the entire podcast episode for you right now. Click below and get your free access to SND, Slice and Dice. I'm Nick Natarella with AdWise Creative. Thank you so much for watching.